Okay. All right. Hey, Purpose Partners. This is Natalie Lawson. I'm back with another episode of Rise to Your Purpose. And I'm joined with a special guest, Becca Boston, which I'm really excited to introduce you guys to her. I mean, her bio is just incredible and what she has just been able to accomplish in these last few years. And she just has an awesome story to share. And a little backstory, this is how small of a world this is I have to share how we met. So we kind of met each other, knew of each other, I think, at a conference that I went to called Embrace Your Ambition in June of this year and was not even expecting to go. I was told about it, I think, 2 weeks prior, made a last minute decision, flew out there. And I remembered like seeing Becca, like knew of people talk. She was like I feel like you were popular within the group. You kind of knew a lot of the people there. So I was a newbie. And we didn't really get to meet though officially. And then we were connected through a really good mutual friend that we both have, which some of you might know her, Joni Kilius, in our Purpose Partner community. And I was like, oh, I think I know her. And then we got connected on a Zoom, and here we are. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to like share your story and have you on the podcast. And I know she's going through the Radiant Leadership Academy and Girl Power Alliance, and so we're bonding over that now. And so I just think it's so cool how God like connects people and orchestrates it so well. So definitely we were meant to meet, right? But let me tell you guys a little bit about Becca. So she has a brand and service called Stay Strong, Stay You. And she helps individuals to recognize that your strength is speaking up, giving your pain a voice, and receiving the help that's needed while staying true to who you are. And despite having a learning disability herself, Becca serves as an inspiring role model, proving that disability should not hinder one's pursuit of their dreams. She is a 2-time best-selling author, renowned speaker, mindset coach, and training coordinator. Becca's transformative message, which is called Stay Strong, Stay You, it has reached over 1.9 million people, you guys. Like, that is incredible. And with her one person impact mentality, her primary focus is on connecting with each individual she speaks to, including you. So we are just so glad that you're here. And whether you are catching this on our podcast, or maybe you're get to be one of our purpose partners exclusively catching it in our community, you guys are in for a treat with Becca today, and you'll definitely have to go follow her after this episode. So Becca, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to share about yourself before we jump in?
Man, I am just honored to be here. And it definitely was a God moment of how small the world can be with, us coming across the paths at the conference. And I definitely recognized you as well as soon as Joni connected us. And I was like, how do I know? And then you were like, that conference. And it's like, oh, right, EYA. So it's the power of connection is beautiful. So I'm just so grateful to be here.
Yeah, love that. So we're going to kind of focus today on, you have so many incredible messages. I mean, even in your bio, right? Talking about having a learning disability, which is kind of special to me too, because I'm an educator. And so I work with a lot of students who have IEPs, and just seeing like, I mean, I almost want to be like, hey, we're going to watch this podcast in my classroom, because to show them like what's possible and that you don't have to be bound, right, by the limitations that, and actually use that as a way to expand what's possible for you. And so I love that side that you're really being vocal about that. But also want to focus on that one person impact, because we at Rise to Your Purpose, that's what we talk about all the time, is that do it for the one. Like, who has God called you to serve and to love and to pour into? And maybe you go live and it doesn't seem like anybody's on, but maybe there's probably going to be that one person that comes by and sees what you wrote or said that day, and that's exactly what they needed, and you just never know. So tell us a little bit of backstory about how like this came to be, of getting this influence, being a 2-time, best-selling author. Like, I'd love to just have them hear your backstory here.
Yeah. So the backstory is, know, in the midst of the world shutting down, I decided to jump on the app TikTok, which a lot of people did, as a place to kind of go. There was a very trending sound that was called Bored in the House Bored. And, we were all just kind of getting through, and it became a creative outlet for a lot of different people. And for me, I was continuing to be an essential healthcare worker. And for me, it was a place for me to put my creativity, but also just kind of, be able to have that outlet. And I never imagined my platform or videos to go viral. And as that began happening, I got some people reaching out, letting me know how my videos were impacting their life. And for me, that was a full circle moment, as there was a moment in my life in which I sat underneath a tree thinking about throwing in the towel to my life, and a video saying your life isn't over popped up on my phone. So for me, it was almost that, God threw the towel back at me. And as I was beginning to see, the way in which my videos, my words were doing the same thing for other people, it was just this, seeing reason within why the towel was handed back to me, and that there's so much more to life that I never even initially planned for. And it's been, just continuing to figure out my consistency, and putting in the work to gain that confidence within my content. But it's definitely been a journey of 3 years so far. So we're still learning. I'm still a work in progress, but I'm definitely happy for my growth. And a lot of my community has really been the one to inspire me to go out and write a book, and to do all that I'm doing. So it's
Mhm.
mutually appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Let me said God threw the towel back at you. And I'm sure there's people on here that can probably relate to that story, or they've been in a season or a time where they felt like they wanted to throw in the towel, no matter like what that might have looked like for them. And God's like, no, I don't want you to give up yet. I was literally just talking with somebody earlier too, that she, was trying to, do a podcast. And she's like, I've had no trouble like all this times. And all of a sudden my mind is just like blank. I have no idea what I want to do, what I want to say. And so we were having this conversation of like, it's almost like the enemy is trying to like muffle her voice and keep her from being who she is and really speaking out boldly and sharing more of what she has. And I think that we are in that season of like, no, we're being called to rise up as leaders. We're being called to share the message with whatever we have that's been given. And so I love that you are, I mean, I follow you and I just see you show up with this like authenticity, but also this boldness and it is this confidence, and you are just pouring into people. And so did it start out like so you said I love you kind of, it sounds like you went in with really no agenda other than just to kind of start speaking, kind of just start sharing your story or your journey. Was there anything that you did that kind of like helped you know what you were going to say each day or what you were going to talk about, that you did like prepping, or did you just kind of like, all right, I'm just going to do it and see what happens?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. For those of you who are not on TikTok or don't really know much about Reels, one of the things that have been popular is to kind of do text along with voiceovers or songs or anything along those lines. And for so long, that's where my comfort zone was. And I actually wasn't very comfortable or confident. And if you scroll back to the early stages of my TikTok, you can see it, and you can kind of see how uncomfortable I am, but I'm still doing it, right? And I think when I look back on that type of content, I was still holding back the energy that I have. I mean, I'm a very high energy person, and I was holding that back. I think a lot of it was fear. A lot of it was still not seeing the potential that was inside of me. But I was very comfortable just doing, the text on the screen over a voiceover or a song. And, as time went on, God just continued to share with me, you need to use your voice.
Mm.
And I just continued to start sharing my voice. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always comfortable, but I always just showed up to, say what was on my heart. And sometimes that was an uplifting message for somebody else. And sometimes that was me expressing my internal pain and kind of more or less directing it at someone who may need to hear it as well. Because as much as I'm talking about myself, I also want to be able to connect with those who are receiving the message. So for me, that's often replacing I with you. So
Mm.
that way we can build that connection together.
Yeah, I love that. And so the connection piece, I think that's so good. Do you ever find that you're also privately in conversations with people that every once in a while that you'll have those messages and then you're also building rapport like off, kind of off the video now in the DMs type of space as well?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like I know we'll get into it in a moment, is within the one person impact is acknowledging that the impact isn't often in the numbers, right? It's not in the likes, it's not in the views, it's not always in the comments. 9 times out of 10, it has come from somebody privately messaging me about how a video has impacted them. And 9 times out of 10, it's that one video that I really didn't want to post, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to post it anyways. And that's always the small moments in which I live for, but I also live for the moments in which I look back at my content, because yes, I'm one of those people who watches my own content to see how it's impacted myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing to remember, is that not only are you impacting yourself, but you're able to watch your own growth throughout the journey as well.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and so I feel like you shared a few lessons already, which was one, do it messy. And like, don't worry about
Yeah.
everything being perfect. Do it messy and just go for it and use your voice is, I think, so powerful. And then this I kind of stole, actually, my friend Jessie Bouton says, show up to blow up. Like, if like you were just like, yep, I'm just gonna do it. And right, I'm gonna show up, do it messy. And then guess what? Like my account blew up. And then reflection, like you're taking time to look at what you're doing and your content to see how can you reflect on that? How can you improve? Maybe what do you want to maybe continue to add on or build on? So I definitely have like watched mine over, and I've thought the same thing. There's been videos where I'm like, I feel like I didn't make any sense at all or didn't know. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna post it. And then you'll get people messaging you or comments that you're like, okay, something must have came out. And I really feel like that's like where Holy Spirit comes in, right? It's like the Holy Spirit can work in ways that we cannot, and so it all works out in the end. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit more to one person impact. So how did you come up with that, and what do you do with it now, and how like what's that main message you want to give to women that are listening about the one person impact?
Yeah, I think we continuously live in a world that is chasing after followers, chasing after those likes. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and I get that. We that's a common thing that we all want. And as incredible as it is, as incredible and amazing as it is to say that Stay Strong, Stay You has now reached 1.9 million, for me it's impacted that one person that really needed it. It impacted that one person to stay alive.
Mm,
It isn't always meant to be understood, because you never know what somebody else is going behind the scenes. And me maybe expressing how I, or somebody who's posting a video talking about their struggle and their pain, somebody else could be relating to that exact same pain and that exact same struggle. And that is ultimately what I think life is about, because pain, setback, adversity, there are all our common denominator in life. And when we can continue to speak up and give our pain a voice, when we can continue to share our struggles and show people what's possible, we are then giving them, a little bit of a guide of how to get through, because nobody was handed a guide of how to get through life. We're all just trying to make it through the best we can. And when you tell your story can become somebody else's survival guide. So
mhm.
don't be afraid to be, show up authentically yourself, show these struggles, show what's hard. And I'm not saying you have to share everything. There are some people where they share every little detail, and I'm like, you may want to get a journal.
Yeah.
But there's other people where you have this boundary. I'm someone who, I don't mind sharing and talking about the struggles in which I'm going through, but I often don't want to share them directly in the moment, because I don't need the world telling me how I need to face my problems. So set the boundary with how much or how little you want to share is definitely something that I would definitely advise people to have within their
Yeah,
mind.
I love that. And I think that just comes with like, right, the setting the boundary, but not being afraid to be vulnerable. And I think that's even something the Lord's
Yes.
been trying to put on my heart of like, you can share a little bit more, go a little bit deeper, because I think growing up, we're always taught just like, don't talk about it. Like anything that's going on, you don't talk about your emotions, you don't show it. And so it's like kind of breaking that guard down, right? Because women need to see that. And I love you said, I don't remember exactly, maybe you can rephrase it, but something about it's like your story, right? Can be someone else's survival guide. I think you just said. I was like, boom, quote right there.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, so I loved that. And we talk about that in the Speaker Academy within GPA2. They say like your message is meant to be mentorship to others. So it's like, how can you take your story or take things and key points maybe you've learned from them and be willing to share those? And I love to like a lot of the women that we work with here that they're entrepreneurs, they're in business of some sort as well. They're in sales of some sort, online marketing. And so I think it's also good to point out that, your content is and how you've kind of grown your influence is because you've been willing to be vulnerable and share things. It's not because you're out there selling things constantly. It's also taking people along on your journey. And I think that's sometimes what we have to remember is that yes, you're in sales and yes, you might be, you want to make sure people know about your service or your product and things that you have, but it's like building that personal brand presence and taking people on that journey with you and not being afraid to show all the sides and things, like you said, with just being mindful of the different boundaries and things. So would you have anything else to like add to that?
I would also just say, like, for people who are getting started or like feeling frustrated, and, I think a big thing within the social media world is getting caught up in the comparison world.
Mhm.
And, time after time, I've been having conversations with people of you can't compare somebody's day one to somebody who's been doing it for years. Like it is something in which you have to show up to, pretty consistently. And you have to, I always tell people, you have to define what your consistency looks like. Because I think there's this big pressure of everybody to be consistent on a daily basis. And I get that. However, at the same time, is that livable for you? Is that something that you can make happen on a daily? And yes, there are systems in which you can approach by doing content batch days and posting throughout the week. So you're planned for it. But at the same time, there's going to be seasons and there's going to be moments in which you may just be burnt out. And to be real, like that's been me this past week. And I stepped away from, creating some content and doing my normal things because I am also working this, full 9 to 5 job, and working overtime. So I've been giving myself permission to step away. And I think it's also just remembering, like, yes, making an impact online is a beautiful thing. You get to reach more people than you will ever begin to imagine. But also, what is the impact that you're making behind the scenes?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, you should also be making an impact on those that you love, those that you care about, showing up for your family and creating those memories with them, because you never know when somebody's expiration date is going to happen. And you want to make sure that you are building those memories because those memories are for life. So
That's
yeah.
such a good point. I couldn't have said that better. I love that you shared that because I think a lot of people like they'll ask me, well, when should I post or when should I do this or do that? And I'm like, well, what's your schedule? What are you doing with your family? Like make your business work for you or work it around that because like you said, it's so important that we don't miss the moments with the people sitting right in front of us. And that yes, like you said, we can have the impact online. And I think, even the Lord told me like your mission field is social media. Like that was a conviction on me of like this is where I can have an impact on people. So really dive into it. But also, like you said, you have to do it in a way that's in alignment with you and where you're not just posting to post or putting things out to do it, like really have that intention and purpose behind it too. Um, so I love that and being mindful of your time and where you're, keeping the people in front of you there and your family important and just aligning with core values. I think knowing what your core values are and then making everything can still be a priority. It's just not, putting something in front of another that maybe shouldn't be. So I love that you spoke that so well. What would you say, if we did talk about that a little bit, what would be a couple of things that have helped you with working? You mentioned working 9 to 5 and sometimes overtime where you are and you're still wanting to continue building up that personal brand and influence and impact on people's lives. So how have you made that like work around you and be able to still treat it, treat your social content like as, kind of think it's not a hobby anymore, right? It's like, no, I'm treating it kind of like as a job too, or with importance. And so how have you made that work for you? Or do you have any tips for people who feel like, okay, they know they have a mission, they're meant to do these things, but they're finding it hard because they are still in a 9 to 5 or doing other things that's taking time?
Yeah, I would definitely say, it's still something that I am continuously a work in progress in. And I would definitely say finding those days in which you can content batch. I would also say if God put something on your heart, record it then and now, because that is when you are going to most likely have the passion and the heart to share it. It is on your heart for a reason. And yes, time after time, you've heard, both of us say that you can't have a message without it being a little messy. I mean, you can't spell message without mess. So it's okay for it to be a little bit messy. That's what's going to, you know, show that you're human. And also just recognize that it's okay to go a day or two without posting, but find the rhythm that works for you,
Mm,
because you want it to be enjoyable. The social media is social. You do want it to be a time in which you enjoy going on there and you do enjoy connecting with your followers. And that's one of the biggest tips that I would say is get to know your community that you are building and build relationships with them, because as I've been going through this season of burnout and just having low energy, it has been my community in my DMs that have been sending me messages of, I hope you're taking care of yourself, I hope you're pouring it into your own cup, literally speaking the words that I speak into them, but also just sharing, funny videos, just brightening up my world. But that right there, that we're here together, that when I take a step back, that they're able to show up. And that's what it's about. That's how you build those connections. And then when when you're asked for testimonies, your community can talk for you of how you're in your DMs or responding to those comments, and really personalizing it. So find ways in which you can make it enjoyable and see it as enjoyable, because the more you see it as fun, the more as you like to show up, the more committed you're going to be. When we have something that we don't like, that we don't want to do, we often don't show up to it, or sometimes we do because we have to work, right? But when you can find the enjoyment in it and know that it's doing good, you are able to show up and have fun with it, and don't ever forget to have that fun.
mm. I love that. I think that's such great advice for our listeners, especially for the women I know we're serving. And I love that, right? Personalize it and have community. I mean, community is so important. I know we thrive in community. Like, right, we do. We thrive in the community. So, I know you have to go soon, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would love for you to first share about your books, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your books and where they can find them. And then any last, message that you would love to share with the women as we close out Rise to Your Purpose podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. So the first book that I was a part of is called Activated. It is a compilation book of individuals sharing how they took action within their life. And it was through Embrace Your Ambition with Ashley Faye Brandstetter, as well as Marcus Black. And I wrote a chapter in that book. And then most recently, I did launch my own book, self-published, called The Story Behind the Smile, Lessons Within My Life. And it takes you on a journey of my life of being diagnosed at a young age with dyslexia and an auditory processing disorder, as well as the pain that I hid behind a smile as I was involved in a domestic violence relationship behind the scenes, and then stepping out into the war of recovery to God throwing the towel back at me. And, then the journey within Stay Strong, Stay You, and how social media, began to show me all the ways in which the direction of my life could change. And within the book, I share about my life, and I then share the lessons that I learned, as well as providing each reader with reflection questions so that you can take action within your life as well. So those are the two books. They're both available on Amazon. Currently, Amazon is playing the game with me, as if you look up The Story Behind the Smile, Lessons Within My Life, it doesn't want to show up. I guess it's just that great that it doesn't want to show up at Amazon. But if you Google it, and you Google my name, Becca Boston, The Story Behind the Smile, Lessons Within My Life, it does show up. So it's available there. I'm sold out of signed copies, but if anybody's interested, I have another bulk order coming through soon. And I would just say to people, just show up and start. The hardest part is starting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through putting in the work that the confidence is built. And you have to be able to just put your foot out there, take that small step forward, and just do it. You never know the way in which your life could be transformed. And it's enjoying the journey along the way, because as I've been stepping out more as a speaker, my schedule has now been getting more and more booked, and I've been in some ways been feeling that pressure, that anxiety of, can I handle all, you've put in that work, you're gaining those opportunities, and it's a beautiful journey. So don't lose sight of yourself throughout the journey, and find the ways in which you can reflect of the memories and even the hard times and the lessons that you've created, but really enjoy the journey and just continue to put yourself out there, because you're worth it and your light deserves to be seen, my friends.
Thank you so much, Becca. This was just so inspiring, and I hope you all took some really key lessons from this as well, like I did. I would love for you to leave a review, tell about Becca what you got from this episode, and or drop a comment. So we would love to hear from you. I'll make sure we find those book links and we can post them in the show notes as well, because I think those will be really good for walking women through that as well and having that reflection even on themselves. But we definitely want to see you guys go out there and have that one person impact that's going to then create a ripple impact, because then that person will go out and you're going to continue inspiring everyone that, as you continue to step up and show up. And like she said, your confidence will come as you take action. So don't be afraid to just step into it and really rise to your purpose in this. And Becca, congratulations too with just all the things that you have accomplished and done over the last few years. And I know big things are still to come for you. So can't wait to keep watching and seeing what all the Lord has in store for you. So thanks everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode of Rise to Your Purpose.
Thank you.